Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Austin O'Dwyer, and I'm going to be doing the visual thinking strategy today for our online lesson. I hope everyone had a good week, and I hope that you enjoy the presentation. So starting off, just to state the goals that I'm trying to accomplish in this quick 10-minute video, I just want to familiarize yourself with the VTS, or visual thinking strategy, and kind of just give you some real-world examples as to when to use it and how to better prepare yourself in the classroom for this type of strategy. Now, this strategy is great for a pretty big, diverse classroom with a lot of different students with a lot of different opinions. It encourages a lot of metacognition and student interaction, so it's a really good way for students to build rapport with one another and maybe just to get to know each other a bit more for a new classroom, or maybe a classroom that's having a little bit of trouble integrating. So that's the main goal, is just to familiarize yourself with this type of strategy and how to get working on it in your own classrooms. So some of the objectives, or big questions I should say, that would be used going forward is how can the visual thinking strategy be correctly used in the classroom. So there's a lot of misconceptions about how it's supposed to be used, so hopefully I clarified that by the end of the lesson. And is visual learning a proven asset in the classroom? So a big thing that I'm about when I implement new strategies is if it has a lot of research behind it. I just don't want to be going in and spending time and money on a strategy that hasn't been researched and proven to work in the classroom. And then I want to talk about how the strategy can be used to conserve time and resources to streamline the classroom a bit more. This is a really good lesson for maybe when you have a short amount of time, because it does provide a lot of student input. It's really student-centric, and it can be utilized in classrooms that might not have enough time to do all these big long lessons, and you might have other stuff going on. This might be a nice little side lesson to supplement a existing unit plan. So then we'll talk about how we as teachers can collaborate with one another and just better understand the VTS and how to implement it in classrooms. It is interdisciplinary, really good for interdisciplinary material. It can be used in history classrooms, art classrooms, English lit classes, so really good for teacher collaboration. And then just some further resources to understand the VTS. And if you have any inquiries, I guess, about what I've been talking about at any time, you can click on the PowerPoint that's available in my full unit plan there, or a lesson plan, excuse me. And it has the entire transcripts for what I'm saying, as well as all the links for all the research and all the links for all the extended reading. Okay, so just the agenda. I'll give you a little background on the strategy, the methodology, and a little breakdown, like a little mini sample lesson, some misunderstandings and myths, and just some further reading. So on slide 3, you can see kind of the big reasons as to why to use the visual thinking strategy, like the big reasons. I think it allows teachers to be more flexible in their instruction. They have been proven to work via research, and you'll have links to all of those research articles as well. Some students learn differently, and it's good to have a different style of lesson in your back pocket at any time. This, I think, might be the first time a lot of kids are seeing kind of like this paired lesson where you have maybe a visual thing and a textual thing right side by side, and they have to draw parallels between them. And the possibilities are pretty much nearly endless for implementation and presentation. So you can edit this, you can revise this as much as you want or as little as you want. There's some really great examples you can find online and on YouTube. And again, I'll have all the links to some YouTube videos for you to watch, and you can actually see it being used in the classroom. I know it's a little bit maybe more difficult to imagine with just this video lesson. Okay. So 2 ways that this instructional strategy is appropriate for teaching adolescents. Well, it promotes metacognition, which is, I think, a pivotal thing for kids to be learning at this stage in their education process. Kids need to learn to think about their own thinking, which is metacognition. And this is it doesn't get much better than the visual thinking method for promoting metacognition. It allows students to kind of see where their thoughts are coming from. They almost scaffold their own thoughts as you go through the lesson. And it really just allows them to draw personal connections as well. And again, this is such a great lesson for allowing students to draw personal connections to subject matter where they might feel not connected to usually, like a big historical event that happened hundreds of years ago. A lot of these kids aren't going to understand, and a lot of them aren't going to care to understand like what happened and why and what the people were feeling, and this allows them to kind of just draw some personal connections. So the way that this strategy is specifically linked to the learning theory, going back again to the metacognition and increasing critical thinking skills. That all just goes hand in hand. It's just a way for kids to learn how to think, essentially, and how to be independent readers and independent thinkers. So, multiple perspectives, ways that it honors multiple perspectives in a classroom. Again, it doesn't get much better than this. Like, the visual thinking strategy is all about like making multiple perspectives across a broad range of subject areas, which I'll get into next. But yeah, multiple perspectives. They're going to hear their classmates talking. They're going to hear a lot of ideas being thrown around. And when I go through like a little mini demonstration, you'll see how just the student interaction alone will just build all these great multiple perspectives. So across a couple subject areas, middle and high school, again, it's just endless. You can really use this in any classroom. You could use this in a math class, you could use this in a history class, art history, literature. So just for example, if you're in an art history class or just a history class, you could use a more dense piece of writing that students might have a little bit of trouble understanding, like Letters from a Birmingham Jail by Martin Luther King Jr. It's a pretty dense piece of writing, but you could pair that with maybe a little bit more fluid, a little more colorful work of art, like by Norman Rockwell, The Problem We All Live With. I'm sure that you guys have probably seen that, but again, if you want to look it up, I'll have the links in my slideshow. In a literature classroom, you can take like a piece like Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. You can couple that with poetry from postmodernist era to kind of bolster like that whole feeling that Vincent van Gogh is trying to capture in that painting. So without further ado, I'll just give you a little example of how to instruct this method in the classroom. So the first step is the teacher takes an interesting picture, painting. It kind of just has to relate to the topic or story being read. Again, this is just endless possibilities. I'll use Van Gogh's Starry Night again. So this is up on the projector. I don't have a projector with me, so I'll just pretend it's behind me the whole time, and allow students to kind of just look at it. Okay. And you just ask students to kind of look at the picture, draw some ideas, what they're feeling, maybe write down in a double entry journal or something like that. Maybe if you have a portfolio, they can add to that. Just look at it silently, have them just take it all in. After a minute, the teacher opens it all up to the classroom, and then the teacher asks, like, what did you see in the picture? And this is a really broad conversation starter. It doesn't have like any agenda. It's not trying to lead students down a certain path of thinking. It's asking what they thought. And usually this is without student collaboration. This is like kind of an individual thing. So just have the students just look at it and say what they think. And these are just conversation starters, as we call them. This will be able to build and kind of snowball into the student interaction portion. So when a student offers a bit of information, feel free to ask them, why did you say this? This is after the initial comments. This is kind of like opening up a little bit more of the metacognition. So why did you say this? Why did you think this? What did you see? What evidence do you see in the text or the drawing, piece of art? Students should be able to justify or back up their original claim. And then this is where it really gets great for student interaction and personal opinions. Students will be able to interact at this point, and they'll be able to discuss what they saw and what they felt, and they'll have to come up with some justifications for their ideas. So students talk about this until they've shared all they can about the picture, and usually the teacher's kind of taking some of these ideas and putting them up on a piece of paper, a whiteboard, or just recording them down in her in a journal or something like that, just so she has a record of what was said. And the teacher then summarizes everything the students said. So she goes down and just this is a nice way to include all students. Maybe she could read everything that was said by students. She could compile a lot of students' ideas into like general ideas for her to talk about, but I think the important thing is that all the students' ideas are allowed to be discussed. And then you can kind of have like a little lesson ender after that, have students just kind of summarize the whole entire lesson, maybe a little personal reflection about what they thought about the lesson. And then you can provide them with the text about the picture, so maybe they could read the text again and have like a little paper due at the end or something like that. Again, possibilities are endless. So I think that's about it. Again, if you have any more questions, all my stuff is going to be on the slides, and I hope that this video was informative enough, and thank you. And one more look at this wonderful painting. Wonderful. Have a great weekend.